welcome back to another edition of Outside the Ropes. I am your host of Outside the Ropes, as always, Matthew Moore. Welcome back to another podcast of Outside the Ropes. Hope everybody is doing really well out there. Thank you very much for tuning in to this week's edition of Outside the Ropes, whether it be on iTunes, on our Facebook, Twitter, or wherever it is else you're listening to us. Thank you very much for downloading this episode on iTunes, and also, most importantly, subscribing to us as well. So hope you're all doing well out there. Hope you're all doing very, very well out there, actually, because it's been a busy, busy week since we last spoke to you last Wednesday on the podcast. We have absolutely loads to talk about on today's episode. So much news has been going on over the last 7 days. We picked out the main stories, and we're going to bring that to you on tonight's podcast. I also want to give a big shout out to people who attended WWE Dublin tonight. We had some fans send us some pictures on Twitter today. I just want to give a wee shout out to everybody and say hello who sent us photographs from WWE Dublin. So I hope you all had a great show. Myself, I'm heading to WWE Belfast next Tuesday night at the SSE Arena in Belfast. I'm heading to that event, which I'm going to be talking about on next Wednesday's podcast. So yeah, if you want to come along and say hello, I will be there. If you want to arrange to meet up for a chat or an interview for the show, guys, you know how to get in touch with us. So I'll be at WWE Belfast next week. I'll give you more details about that later on this podcast. Before I go any further on tonight's show, I want to give a shout out to our friends and partners of this podcast. If you're historians of professional wrestling, guys, like myself and most people who listen to this show, Wrestling's Past is the location. Whether you're new to professional wrestling or you're an old fan just like me, I love the way I say that, old fan, or a fan of a long, long time, Wrestling's Past is the location. Check out their website, wrestlingspast.blogspot.co.uk, and also on Twitter at Wrestling's Past for all the history of professional wrestling. They've done some recent blogs on their website, which has been so great to read, and also their daily tweets, etc. on their Twitter account, which is at Wrestling's Past on Twitter. So that's Wrestling's Past for all your history of wrestling needs. Guys, what has been going on in WWE and also the world of professional wrestling over the last 7 days? We've got so much to talk about. I'll give you some of the subjects that we're going to talk about tonight, and also we're going to talk about some more. We've got some news on a incident involving Jerry the King Lawler this past week, where he was involved in a motor accident. We've got an update on Randy Orton's injury. We've got more injuries as well involving Nikki Bella and Rusev. We've got some news regarding the program SmackDown, whether it's moving networks in early 2016. Some legends have re-signed with WWE, a tease of a return possibly to WWE soon on Twitter from a big name star. We also have a former star getting married this week as well. So that and much, much more on tonight's edition of Outside the Ropes. Last Monday night's Raw, I want to go through it quickly. It was a pretty good show. We had a main event, which was a 5-on-5 Survivor Series match, which is pushing the feud between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins for the WWE World Heavyweight title match coming up at Survivor Series, which we're all looking forward to that as well on the WWE Network. We also had the return of the Usos, which we've been saying for weeks that the Usos are going to be coming back on the television. Monday Night Raw was a great show. We also had a fantastic promo from Bray Wyatt, teasing this match for Survivor Series with The Undertaker and Kane. We did send out a message on Twitter and Facebook asking, we gave you a scenario of a Survivor Series match. We're going to read some of your messages about that shortly when we go through all the tweets and messages later on in the podcast. But the Bray Wyatt promo on Raw was great. It was really, really creepy. He was using all the Undertaker's, ways of the pyrotechnics and stuff like that, all the special effects and stuff, but done a video package about him and Kane, the Brothers of Destruction. So this will be interesting leading into Survivor Series in 2 weeks' time on the WWE Network. But Raw as a whole was a great show. I thoroughly enjoyed it from top to bottom. Some great matches on the card. So yeah, Raw as a whole this past week was a very good show. But the news came out this past few days of an incident that involved Jerry the King Lawler, where he was involved in a car crash with his current girlfriend. Now, we all sent out the news. I was sent the photographs that Jerry actually put on Twitter. If you haven't seen those, you can go and check them out on Jerry Lawler's Twitter account, or you can go to our Twitter account Outside the Rope and have a look at the photographs that we tweeted of Jerry the King Lawler's car after the incident he had this past week with his girlfriend. Now, we haven't heard any more on Jerry's condition. All we know is that he is doing okay, and he should be back to work pretty soon. Now, whether he was on the SmackDown tape, I don't think he was this week, to be honest with you. I haven't read the results or anything. Like, we don't give the results in this podcast, as you all know. But we do wish Jerry Lawler a speedy recovery and get him back on the television as soon as possible. It's been a funny old few years for Jerry the King Lawler. We almost lost him, as you all know, guys. A few years ago, he had a heart attack and now a serious car crash. It's going to take a lot more than that to keep the king down, I'll tell you. But all the best to Jerry Lawler. Hope him and his girlfriend are doing really, really well. Another injury update as well. We have from Randy Orton. Randy Orton, as you all know, was announced 3 weeks on Raw that he was injured with a shoulder injury. But it has come out over on WWE.com and obviously across various websites over the last few days since we last spoke to you, that Randy Orton could be out for an estimate of 4 to 6 months. That means if he's out for 6 months, that means Randy Orton will miss WrestleMania next year, which tickets do go on sale this weekend, by the way, guys. If you are going to WrestleMania, let us know. And we'll all talk to you about it. But yeah, Randy Orton is estimated to be out for 4 to 6 months with the shoulder injury that has been bothering him. They are saying that on storyline that it was the Wyatt family who took him out. But Randy Orton should be out for about 4 to 6 months. But whether this is going to be the phase of time that he is going to be out for, we don't know. But if we hear any more news, of course, guys, you know where to get the news every week, right here on Outside the Ropes. Also, in the last few days, a story has come out on all various websites and also on Instagram and Twitter and stuff of former Divas champion Nikki Bella being injured too. Now, we've heard various stories that it is her neck has been giving her a bit of a problem. She did send out a photograph on Instagram with her with a collar on her neck, but we also hear that she has an injury that's been bothering her for a while on her hip. So Nikki Bella hasn't said exactly how long she's going to be out for, but Nikki Bella is injured too. Now, she will be off TV for a while. I don't know how long she's going to be off TV for. All we know is that so far she's posted out saying about her neck, but we have heard as well that she has a hip injury. Again, we'll keep an eye on the story here on Outside the Ropes as well. We also hear that Rusev is injured as well, and it has been confirmed that he is going to be injured because he was supposed to do a public signing. Well, a few actually on the UK Tour started now. One being next Tuesday, where I was supposed to go and meet him myself in Belfast, but unfortunately he will not be there. He'll be replaced by the millions of dollars guys, the boys I'm looking forward to. Keep an eye on our Facebook for that, guys, because when I go to meet the primetime players, I'm hopefully going to get a video of me dancing with them. So keep an eye on that. I'm hopefully going to get that done. I'm going to try my hardest to get that done with the primetime players. But Rusev apparently is injured too. So again, we'll just keep an eye on this ongoing story. We're hearing, of course, we'll send it out on our social media feeds too. We also hear that Ric Flair, as everybody was announced that Ric Flair was supposed to be doing general manager on this UK tour. Well, here he's supposed to be, but apparently he got injured in Mexico and he has hurt his Achilles tendon. Now, Ric Flair will be not on the tour no longer. So things are saying that Ric Flair had injections on his foot, but he is walking around quite normally, but he is in quite a bit of pain. So Ric Flair was injured in Mexico as well. So a lot of injuries going on at the minute in WWE involving obviously Lawler with the car crash, Orton injury, Nikki, Rusev, and of course Ric Flair. So there you go. Injuries galore. I'm telling you, unbelievable. News has come out actually today. It was announced that we all know actually, but it's been confirmed today that SmackDown is due to move networks on the 17th of January 2016 to move up to the home of the WWE on American television, the USA Network. Now, everybody knows that Monday Night Raw's main home has been the USA Network for a lot of years, but SmackDown is going to the USA Network, and it has been confirmed that this is going to happen on the 17th of January. They put out a big public statement today saying that they're happy to see SmackDown come to the USA Network to join Monday Night Raw, and hopefully this will boost the ratings for SmackDown. Now, we all know SmackDown's going to get big ratings, especially coming up in the next week or so whenever The Undertaker appears in SmackDown in Manchester, which they've been promoting very, very heavily. But they are going to the USA Network on the 17th of January, hopefully to boost ratings for the WWE program itself. Other news come out this week, guys, regarding some legends who have re-signed legend deals, so we say, with the WWE. Now, one being we announced the other day on our Facebook that Tatanka, a lot of these guys will probably remember him from back in the day, had signed a Legends deal, but one that came out today, which is really surprising, and I'm over the moon to hear. But obviously, with his actions in the past, people were been tweeting us tonight and stuff, and emails and stuff, and saying, "Oh, why did he get a contract? You know, he was a sorry so and so, and he shouldn't have got re-signed." But superstar Billy Graham has signed a Legends deal with WWE. Apparently, he was backstage at last week's SmackDown tapings, and he had a meeting with Triple H and the proper people backstage, and he has agreed to sign a Legends deal with WWE, which involves him doing WrestleMania meet and greets and also attending WrestleMania 32 in Texas next year. So that's Tatanka and superstar Billy Graham, who has signed Legends contracts with the company. That's great in my eyes because they are superstar Billy Graham, for stars, is a legend, WWE Hall of Famer. A lot of people said that it was going around the internet that apparently he sold his Hall of Fame. I don't know why he's done it or not, but at the end of the day, he's back with the company, and it's good to see. It was Triple H who got this deal set up for superstar Billy Graham, and also the Tatanka. So, anybody out there who want to comment on this here on these legends who have signed with the company, you know how to get in touch with us by email, Twitter, and Facebook. So there you go. Now, speaking of Twitter, a tease has been coming out over the last lot of days as well regarding the return of a big name star. Now, we did talk about this before the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, whether this guy was going to return at the Hell in a Cell to challenge John Cena for the United States title. A lot of people did say he was going to return because he was in the building that day, for what we know of. Daniel Bryan has teased on Twitter a possible return to the ring soon, as in very soon. If you haven't saw that tweet, go to his Twitter account. We also have retweeted it as well. Daniel Bryan's Twitter account is on there as well. You have a look at the tweet that he put out. He is teasing a possible return. Now, we do know now, what we do know actually, is that Daniel Bryan is almost on the verge of coming back to the ring. Is this a big mistake for him? Should he stay out of the ring and do more, stuff outside the ring? Had a lot of Daniel Bryan fans for the last lot of days tweeting us and stuff and saying to us, he's silly for getting back into the ring. He's going to end up paralyzed. He is going to end up like Edge. He's going to end up like Austin. But he has teased that apparently he is ready to come back to the ring. So keep an eye on WWE television and keep an eye on our social media feeds. Once we get any news, we'll get that right out to you here on Outside the Ropes as well. Also, some news regarding WWE Divas Champion Charlotte. Her divorce came through this week as well. As everybody knows, she is married to Bram of TNA, but the divorces came through as final. So Charlotte is now not married anymore. She's single again. I didn't even know she was married until I read the story, to be honest with you guys. But there you go. Another thing on Twitter. What's this thing about Twitter this week? Everybody seems to be on Twitter. Everything seems to be happening on Twitter this week. Interesting tweet this week. Alundra Blaze lays all the words Medusa, Hall of Famer, a great wrestler from back in the day, old school. I mean, you seen her at the Hall of Fame. You saw her in the Paul Heyman video with Joe Weller where he beat him up and suplexed him in the Paul Heyman's pool. You saw her on the Legends table thing with Molly Holly and Ivory, which I thought was awesome, by the way. If you haven't seen it on the network, go and check it out. We've seen her on doing all different things recently, but she's been on Twitter the last lot of days challenging Paige to a match. Interesting. Would we like to see that at WrestleMania? Everybody says that Paige comes from an old school background and she's trying to get things about respect in the business. What better way to bring in Alundra Blaze to beat her ass at WrestleMania? Interesting. But everybody seems to be on Twitter this week challenging people to fights and teasing stuff and all. I tell you, Twitter this week's been crazy. But there you go. We did talk about it on last week's podcast, guys. Ronda Rousey. She said that she would like to come and become Divas Champion very soon. In a recent interview, she did say that she wants to come to the WWE. As we all know, she was in the ring last year at WrestleMania with The Rock, with Stephanie and Triple H in a segment that was quite good. But now she's come out and said she definitely wants to come to WWE and she is ready for the WWE. So there you go, Ronda Rousey. Who would like to see her in WWE and kick Nikki Bella's ass and kick Paige's ass? I would love to see that. Awesome. We also had a marriage this week. Mark Jindrak Former WWF guy, WWE guy, Mark Jindrak. You all remember him from the Invasion days. Got married this week, so big congratulations to former WWE and WWE, WWF, what do you want to call him, star Mark Jindrak. He got married this past week. We did retweet his tweet, where he was obviously married. He was married to a dancer. She's a beautiful looking lady. I saw that the tweet, should I say, another tweet. Unbelievable. There you go. But congratulations to Mark Jindrak as he got married this past week. One final thing I want to talk about Twitter this week. And I don't keep talking about Twitter. It's just crazy. Curtis Axel. Did you see the tweet that Curtis Axel sent out the other day? We sent it out on our social media feeds again. Curtis Axel sent out a tweet there the other day on the 2nd of November saying, "I'm the son of Mr. Perfect for Christ's sake, and I'm damn good. The sidelines ain't no place for a starter, for a starter at WWE." Curtis Axel seems to be really PO'd that he isn't on television, and I agree. Curtis Axel, Mr. Perfect's son, is a great talent. He was getting a bit of a push when he was Intercontinental Champion with Paul Heyman, and then it all faded away, and then he was doing the thing with Damien Mizdow. And obviously that stopped because of the whole Hulk Hogan thing, and now he's doing nothing. He was on a table of 3 on the network recently with The Miz and who's the other one? R-Truth. But Curtis Axel's unbelievable. If you haven't seen it again, guys, find it. I want to finish. Only time I'm going to talk about Twitter now is whenever I answer your questions. We sent out a picture today asking you guys. We're going to go answer your stuff that you put us on social media. We put up one today saying, who in your mind is the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time? Let's go to Facebook first. Darren Morrissey says, Mr. Perfect for me, just an unbelievable talent. Very good call for the greatest of all time. Alan White says on Facebook as well, says Mr. Perfect, and also Mark McCaw, a new listener. Mark, how are you? I know Mark quite well, actually. Thanks for tuning in. Also says Mr. Perfect. So a lot of people are saying Mr. Perfect. You know, there's been a lot of great Intercontinental Champions. We've had the likes of Bret Hart, the Honky Tonk Man, longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. But, let's go into more for people who thinks is the greatest IC champ of all time. Twitter, put it out on Twitter as well. Paul Iceberry says Mr. Perfect as well. A lot of people seem to be saying Mr. Perfect. A lot of people. It's just so many. We'll have one here from Ziggy on Twitter says, bad news, Barrett. Really? Bad news, Barrett? Interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm trying to think. I'm going through here the tweets just a second here. Do apologize. I'm trying to work on the iPad while I'm doing a podcast here. We had a couple in here on private mail today on Twitter as well, saying from Susan saying that the greatest Intercontinental Champion has to be the Honky Tonk Man because he was the longest reigning champion ever. We've had a few people in saying Triple H. We've had ones in saying The Rock. We've had a couple of Bret Harts. So who, guys, I want to keep this poll open for the next couple of days. I'm maybe bring it up next week on the show. Who is the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time? Really? It's who would I say would be the greatest of all time? It's hard to explain. There's so many to choose from. Bret Hart. There's Triple H, The Rock. Honky Tonk Man, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Nobody forgets their match at WrestleMania 3. Everybody keeps talking about that. But who is the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time? There you go. Something we also put out as well. This has went absolutely crazy on Twitter. We put a thing out the other day asking you guys, have you ever been guilty of the following? We put out four photographs of not catchphrases, but sort of things that certain superstars do. And a lot of you have responded to us, and it's been great. I want to go through a couple of them now. Have you ever been guilty of the following? Spraying water like Triple H, the Ric Flair strut, the People's Eyebrow, or Shawn Michaels' pose? Have you ever been guilty of any of that? Let's see. Charles on Twitter says, yes, the Ric Flair strut. Woo! Many a time. Welcome FFC on Twitter says, back when I was a kid, me and my bro did all of this, like we all did. We're all big marks of wrestling fans back in the Attitude Era for doing that. Okay, fair enough. Let's have a look here. Stephen on Twitter says he is desperate for doing the Rock's Paper's eyebrow when somebody pisses them off the way he looks at them. Okay. Let's go to Facebook and read a couple. Darren Morrissey on Facebook says all of them and the Randy Orton pose as well. Peter McElinden on Facebook says the people's eyebrow, but I was doing that since I was a kid before The Rock was even a thing, so it really doesn't count. Okay. Anton Nolte on thing says as well, the slow-mo videos of John Morrison. Okay. And Andrew Atkinson on Facebook says the people's eyebrow. So have you ever been caught even like just doing it, not even thinking about it, even spraying water like Triple H, the Ric Flair strut, the people's eyebrow, or Shawn Michaels pose? And Matthew Smith even sent one on Facebook says he would do them all, but he can't spray water in his office. First job. So unbelievable. But yeah, that was another thing we sent out the other day, and people got involved. So obviously we can't read them all out. So yeah, thanks guys for all your messages over the last few days. One final thing we sent out to you is I'm going to ask you for your opinion on. Let us hear your thoughts on what I think of this match would be at Survivor Series, being Team Undertaker versus Team Wyatt. Team Wyatt can obviously consist of the Wyatt family, all four of them, against the following: The Undertaker and Kane, with their partners being, what a team this would be, Finn Balor as the Demon, and also Sting. Now, let's get a little comments here. Mark Dale said this would be awesome. Stephen McCoy on Facebook says The Undertaker Kane Acolytes versus the Wyatts would be better. The Acolytes, God, it's funny enough, actually JBL did call them, don't even want to repeat it on that because we're a family friendly show, bees. Those silly beating up the Undertaker. Alan White made a very good comment on Facebook actually today before we went on the air, saying, I get the whole undead versus evil thing, but this should be done off the back of the Wyatts looking strong, not plodding on after defeats. Hate that Bray Wyatt is used this way. He should be Sinister Monster heel. I would actually agree with that, actually. It's fair point. Let's go back to our wonderful place of Twitter and see what everybody else on Twitter thinks of this match. Oh dear. Jonathan on Twitter says this match will be awesome. It's like all the creeps, he uses big words, creeps, together as one. Let's have a look here. Mark on Twitter says this match would be awesome. So yeah, let us hear what you think of this match. It's on there. The photograph's on there. Undertaker, Kane, Sting, and Finn Balor versus the Wyatt family. Let's see what you think. We also put a couple of wee polls at the other day. And most importantly, we've had this from a fan who's been asked us for a while to talk about this on the podcast, but to want to talk about soon. So if anybody's want to get involved in this, because I know a lot of you do, we asked you, would you like us to talk about the WWE wellness policy? 70% of you on Twitter said no, but Warriors on Facebook said yes. I don't understand. Would you like us to talk about the wellness policy? We can certainly get into it. We can make a segment, like a 20-minute segment about the wellness policy. We can bring people on the air. We can talk about it. We can bring you in. We can ask you questions about it. We all know about the history of the wellness policy, even back in the day, you know, right back to the early 90s, where Vince McMahon was trialed in court about steroids and stuff like that, right up until recent times, the suspensions of Jeff Hardy and all these other guys. But 70% of the voting on Twitter said no. Why? Why do you want to talk about it? It's a great thing to talk about. We could talk about it. Bring people on the air and talk about it. I'm going to put it again this week. The wellness policy. Do you want to talk about it? I do. I want to talk about it. I think it's going to be a great subject to talk about. The wellness policy. There's so much we could talk about on that, but there you go. But we're going to stop talking about Twitter and Facebook now, because this show's been all about Twitter and Facebook this week. It's been unreal. But yeah, guys, thank you so much, by the way, for your response to last week's show. iTunes downloads were fantastic. We almost had 1,000 views on Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in. YouTube, is slowly, it's getting there. It's sort of up and down, really. Speaker, so. iTunes is the place. That's where we're getting most of our fans. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the new followers on Twitter. And thank you for subscribing to us everywhere else. So there you go. But guys, I want a big shout out to all the guys in WWE Dublin tonight. I hope you've had a great show. I know a lot of the guys are going to be coming up and meeting us. As I did say at the start of this podcast, I'm going to give you some details. I'll be attending WWE Belfast next Tuesday night at the what's called the Odyssey Arena, but it's changed its name to the SSE Arena. If you would like to meet up with me and have a wee chat, I'm bringing a recording device with me. I've been given one to take to the show. I'll be there with an assistant, a female assistant. Way, I'm only kidding. I'll be at the show, and we'll be tweeting out if you want to come and say hello and say a few words and talk about the show, or talk about after the show, or you want to say things about our show, talk about the upcoming Survivor Series, which is going to be a few days after. Certainly you can do that. Tweet us at Outside the Rope. We will meet you. I know last time we were supposed to meet you, and a lot of people was a bit of wires crossed, and we didn't meet people at the time. By the time we got there, they were gone or we were gone. This time, I want to speak to you. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your views on the world of wrestling at the moment, the UK Tour. If you want to come on to Skype and talk to us, we can certainly we'll bring you on, no problem. But I'll be there next Tuesday night at the WWE show, sending out tweets, talking to you, and if you want to come along and say hello, I'll be there. Come and say hello. We'll get you recorded. We'll get you on the Wednesday show, which is the night after. So please, come and say hello. I'll be there. So there you go. Before you go, guys, wanted to give a wee shout out to some local promotions here in Northern Ireland. I know you probably listen to us from around the world, but want to give a wee shout out if you are in the Ireland area, which we do get a lot of people who listen to us. Check out our friends Pro Wrestling Ulster on their website, prowrestlingulster.co.uk. Also check out wrestling.ie on the internet, which is www.wrestling.ie. Check out Mainstays Wrestling, Over the Top Wrestling. Also check out all the other promotions, Fight Factory Pro Wrestling, and much, much more. So there you go. And also check out our good friends at British Wrestling Radio with Dino and all the crew too as well. And of course, our good friends and partners of this podcast, Wrestling's Past, for all the history of wrestling. Check those guys out. Guys, I'm going to hit the road. It's late. I know this show's gone a wee bit later than normal. I do apologise, but I want to go now, and we're going to get this show up, get it online, talk to you. Don't forget tonight, guys, we've got NXT and TNA. I'll be watching NXT as I always do every Wednesday night on the WWE Network. Keep your comments coming in, especially in our thing as well. I forgot to mention, we sent out a cracking photograph of all the old wrestlers from back in the early 90s. A lot of you have been sending us messages about that, which unfortunately didn't have time to talk about, but thank you again for everybody getting in contact with us on our social media feeds, emails, etc. as well. So, guys, don't forget, next Tuesday night, come and say hello to me. I'll be reminding you all week on social media. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you for tuning in for another edition of Outside the Ropes. So until next Wednesday, wherever if you're going to a WWE event in the UK, send us pictures and let us see about it. We'll talk about it. We'll come and say hello to you. That's what we're here for. Remember, this podcast is for you fans. So from your host, Matthew, for another week, I'll see you back here next Wednesday, hopefully with interviews of fans and more on another edition of Outside the Ropes.